Hello, my name is Dan Vlamis, and I'm your host today for today's Analytics and Data TechCast. It's going to be immediately following this brief introduction. I'm on the board of the Analytics and Data Oracle user community, and very happy to be hosting today. We have a great speaker today, Philippe Leon, almost doesn't need an introduction, but he's going to be talking about making the most of OAC and machine learning, Oracle machine learning native integration. Afterwards, if we have time, we'll have a brief Q&A. So this is in a series of webcasts. We actually have some links that we will post in the chat so you can take a look, more information on Oracle Analytics. We'll put those in the chat so you can go look at those links at your leisure. This is in a series of TechCasts. We have several in this archive going back actually 2018 as well. You can go back and look at these, and we record all these and make them available as videos and the slides as well. You'll get those at andouc.org/techcasts. As you can see, look through them. It is a plethora of information, and we host them up on YouTube as well. You'll find information at andouc.org or at analyticsanddataSummit.org. We also have upcoming several TechCasts coming up, one on March 18th on Graph Studio in Oracle Autonomous Database. They'll be talking that and showing something that is coming out very soon. It's actually available in limited availability in the Oracle Autonomous Database. And then I'll be presenting on what's new in Oracle Analytics, the Spring 2021 edition, showing some of the great features in the latest releases of Oracle Analytics Cloud. You'll also want to save the date for an upcoming TechCast days. This is when we set aside 3 hours on 3 consecutive days. And this time we're going to focus especially on hands-on labs. We're going to host a session where you can go and try out this technology for yourself. So watch for this more. You can submit an abstract if you want to present as part of TechCast days or these about every 2-week TechCasts that we put on. You can submit your own extra abstract for that, and we have a committee that looks through those and selects the most compelling ones for our audience, and you too can be presenting on this. We have several ways to join our community. We have a Slack workspace, and you can see the big long URL in there, but we'll post that in the chat as well so you can join us. That's where you can connect to many of our speakers, the board, talk about stuff, and really join a community of people where you can post questions, comments, all that type of stuff. We have a newsletter as well. You can see that on there. That comes out daily, and that's a newsletter that kind of automatically scrubs and looks for topics of interest. So you'll want to subscribe to that. We have a LinkedIn channel as well. You can join that, and you can always tweet us at Analytic and the Data. We had to leave off the S because of the length of Twitter name rules, and a Facebook page. So any of those, you can join us and communicate with the community. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Philippe and let him take us through using machine learning with Oracle Analytics Cloud.
Thank you very much, Dan. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, let me go and share my screen. I'm going to stop your sharing.
Yep.
Okay. So thank you very much, Dan, for this introduction, and thank you very much to your team and Carrie's team here for giving us the opportunity to talk about the integration of Oracle machine learning and OAC together. I'm very excited. I'm very impressed with the audience here in the call, and the fact that this is technical oriented. The agenda that you shared on the different TechCasts makes me want to attend all of these. This is impressive. I'm looking forward. The next one as well on Graph Studio anyway. This is really exciting. As you can hear, I'm really happy to be there. So I don't have much time, and I have a lot of content and probably too much. So I'm going to go straight to the point here. So I'm part of the Oracle Analytics product management team. I've done this for quite a few years now. And I want to talk to you today about how exciting the capability of OAC, how exciting the capability is of OAC integrating with Oracle machine learning, so the database machine learning natively. So if I can get my slide to go to the next slide, there are several aspects of machine learning in OAC. Okay, so machine learning is present in many different features of Oracle Analytics. One, through augmented analytics, when you right click and when you do some explain or ask the system to provide some spontaneous information about your data, this is invoking some machine learning algorithm. That's the first bullet. Another machine learning capability of OAC is the fact that users, any users, business analysts or data scientists or data engineers, any users can simply design machine learning models and apply them. So brief slide on this, when you are an OAC user, you have a experience, a UI for a completely codeless machine learning design cycle as part of OAC. So that's data loading, that's data preparation. You may have heard some data flow, maybe you're familiar with this. That's exploratory data analysis, because that's what OAC is meant for, visualizing data, so understanding data. Obviously, as part of data loading is also mashing up, joining, and all that. And then there is also, most importantly, model development as part of Oracle Analytics, and model evaluation, and then looping this all as many times as you need it. And then deploying is just as part of OAC, because it's all baked into Oracle Analytics. So this is a capability that comes with OAC, but that's not what I want to talk to you about today. I'm just highlighting it because my point today is about the integration of that Oracle Analytics with an existing machine learning set of models in the database. So I just showed you a cycle, which is the Oracle Analytics machine learning capability, but I'm going to talk to you about something else. How Oracle Analytics on top of this can also simply consume other machine learning models that have been built in the database. So that's in addition to the ability of Oracle OAC to build its own machine learning, it can also consume other models that have been built somewhere else. So in ADW or any Oracle database or DBCS. So any Oracle database comes with machine learning capability for free, and data scientists may be familiar with it and may have developed very powerful and robust model, and Oracle Analytics can consume this. So this is really exciting. And why is that? So there are two things I would like to highlight today. That's why I'm saying I have a lot of content. One is, how do we consume this in OAC and what is the value of it? And two is, in addition to consuming machine learning models, the same paradigm also allows OAC to run and apply pretty advanced database analytics SQLs. And that's very powerful as well. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to show that, but it's just as powerful. And anyway, so let me carry on. So what does it bring to users that they are able to consume machine learning or OML machine learning models with OAC? What's the value of it? First of all, they can, or business users of any kind, business analysts, like I say, so people who have no idea of coding, people who have no idea of possibly machine learning itself, can simply and easily, so business people can simply easily apply machine learning models that are in the database on their own data sets and nicely visualize results. Not only that, they can visualize also some metadata about the model and the quality of it. So we can see behind under the hood of the OML model using OAC. And most importantly, something that I claim OAC does even better than OML itself is visualize or understanding and explaining the results that OML, so Oracle database machine learning models, deliver, and understanding why, and obviously visualizing it. And then eventually, that's what I was talking to you about as well. Well, typically when you do machine learning, you also need to transform your data and use some advanced analytics capabilities that exist in the database. And there is a neat UI in OAC to do this. So if I had to stop my presentation there, I would say this is what you need to take away from it. Any business user can easily apply, trigger, run consume these very powerful database machine learning models that have been built for data scientists. So this is interesting for business users because it exposes them with the power of the capability, the machine learning in the database. And it's also interesting for the data scientists because it's a very quick way to deploy / collaborate with business users on their own data science work that they're doing in the database. It's a very handy way for business users to consume this. So it brings agility to your organization, basically. That's what it comes down to. So with this, if I start simply by the Oracle machine learning process, and what am I talking about here? Well, the process is very simple. A data scientist or some data scientists have built some machine learning models in ADW. So that exists. That's the gray block here. And I, as a OAC business user, simply have to register this model. And I'm going to show you a demo of this right away. And I simply apply them exactly the same way as if they were models that had been built in OAC. There's no difference for me. The difference is the capability and the power that is behind the scenes in the database. And eventually, of course, the whole thing executes in the database. That's the whole point. There is no data that is going to be fetched by OAC to crunch it in OAC. And then, no, this is all happening in the database. That's a native aspect of this integration. So if I go with a quick demo on this, if this is helping me. Okay, so this is my OAC home screen, right? And here in my top right menu, I have a register machine learning model option here. So I am an OAC user. And as I register a machine learning model, this is just simply telling me, okay, fair enough. Prompt me, tell me what database it is that you have that machine learning model built in. So there is a database here. I have several databases in my environment. One is called local OML. And as I click on it, then I can see what are the models that exist in that database. So these are machine learning models that have been built in the database by data scientists using SQL, notebooks, or any interface that is possible in the database to build these models. And they're like cryptic names. When I click on one of them, for instance, I can see some more details. This is a support vector machine model. It's a classification type model, and it's targeting a by insurance column right there. And the parameters for it are some parameters. These are the hyperparameters. So maybe I'm not interested into this. Maybe I'm just being told that, hey, this is the model that is ready for you. So now let me click on another one just to visit it. It has also different parameters. This is just a way for me to understand what each model is about. All I have to do as a business user is click on register. And as I do this, that's it. The model now exists as part of Oracle Analytics. You can see here, this is the list of models in OAC. And I can see the one that we just registered. If I go and inspect, so basically properties of the model, I will see again. I can visit and see the details again. I can also see related tab, and related tab here is giving me a list of views in the database that provide with the metadata of this model. So these data sources allow me into OAC to visualize the metadata of the model. If you're familiar with Oracle Machine Learning, you know that these views exist, but most likely, if you're not familiar, like I am not, having information that for this model, such number of views exist in the database and I can connect to them. And if I connect to them, I can produce slide visualizations such as, hey, here is the details of the tree of the classification, the decision tree model in the database, or here are the main significant parameters in the model that are being used. So I can go and visualize this information because I know exactly where it resides in the database and visualize it in OAC and get some details and understand what this model is about. But if I carry on here for time's sake, so I'm going to skip on this because I don't have time to visualize it. All I'm going to do now is consume this model. Remember, I'm a business user and I went here and created a data flow. And when I create a data flow, I'm being prompted to say, what is your data source? My data source is some customer profile that I have about insurance. Remember, the model we selected predicted a a propensity to buy an insurance product. So here is my set of own customers. Now, you may have noticed this data set was in a database, okay? It had a nice database icon. It's an Oracle database data set. And guess what? So I'm going to go and apply a model. So here you see in my data flow, the different little nodes that I could use for my data flow. One of them you can see at the bottom are training models. So this is the native training of OAC. This is not the ADW. This is not the OML. And then there is this apply model node that I'm going to click on right now. Now, when I click on apply, I see different models that I can apply to my data set. And if you notice, there are some models that are marked as Oracle database here. So these are the models that exist in the database where we have the data set, and we can apply them directly on our data set. So you also, if you look at the bottom, you can see also other models that have been built in Oracle Analytics. You can see the difference, but there are a few of them that I registered here in my demo that I can use from that same database where my data set resides. So when I click on one, then the process is just simply the same as if you had applied any model in OAC. So I have some outputs and I have some parameters and inputs. So inputs, the system was smart enough to figure out that perhaps I should do, I went just a few seconds too quick. In my inputs, you may see here that the system was smart enough to figure out that my table had columns that pretty much match all of the inputs. So I could click on any of these columns and override that choice, but I'm going to skip this and collapse it. Outputs are prediction and prediction probability. So this is going to generate for every record a prediction and a probability. And then I can go crazy with visualizing this information. But one thing I want to highlight is we do a lot more than this. If I click on that additional output, you will see about 20 extra fields. And what is this? There are two types of field. There are prediction set and prediction details. Prediction set is this. Basically, for a classification, maybe we're classifying into multiple groups. So the most probable one is the prediction at the top, but maybe there is the second probable one. Maybe the most probable one is 51% probable, and the second one is maybe 42% probable, and the third one is very low. And I, as a business user, I'm interested in having this, so I can have this output for each prediction and each probability, and I can do all sorts of visualization based on this just by simply clicking on the different prediction and probabilities here that I want, up to 4, actually 5 with the main one. And then there is another set of columns at the bottom, which is prediction details. That's where we can do the explain that I was talking to you about. You can see that for every record here, we are providing attribute, weight, and condition that make up the reason why a given record has been scored with a given value. So this is for every record is going to tell me the most important attribute that made it be predicted this way, and then its weight and the value for the attribute, and then the second one, and then the third one, and the fourth one, and so on. So this is very powerful. When I run this, I'm going to select a few here, and I'm just going to speed up for time reasons. This is very powerful in the sense that, so let me complete my data flow. Okay, I'm just saving this data. And as I save it, I just give it a name. And what's going to happen here is as I run this data flow, it's going to create a resulting data set in OAC. Basically, it creates a table in the database, and everything is happening in the database, but it also registers it in OAC. So I have a few score result sets that I had created here, like one using this SVM model. So again, the data flow took the data in the database, left it in the database, did all the SQL crunching in the database, and produced the result. And now we can look at it in OAC. So we can see, obviously, all the data that I had, customer ID. And if I go at the top here, I can see the prediction column, the probability, and all the things that we've selected. So if I go with prediction and probability, now I have my customers and I have their main prediction, no, yes, and the probability. And now I can slice and this in many different ways and produce all sorts of visuals. Right there, I'm super happy. That's very powerful for me. I started with my data. I applied a database model that somebody had built for me or for that purpose. And now I have the results. And this all happened in a database. There was no data movement. It was very powerful. But if I go a little further, and if I now leverage this attribute information, so you see attribute one weight and probability, you see attribute two and so on. If I do this, now I can measure why was customer one predicted with no 81% using this model? Because his parameter or his attribute has children / yes, no, was the primary driver in the scoring. The secondary driver was the time as customer right there. The third most important was the region with the value being West, and it was a weight of 10%, and so on for every single record. This is not simply telling me the model is using these attributes in general. This is telling me for your data, record by record, this is why we got to this score. So of course, if I leverage this in OAC, I can visualize it in many different ways. I'm gonna maybe speed up a little bit here, but if I go probably around here, I can aggregate this information. So that's what I did here. I aggregated these top attributes here, like that's the top one attribute for my whole data set, and then the red chart is the second most important attribute, and the blue is the third. And I can see, of course, that across my data set, the list of most important attributes is different. And when I look in slices of my data, like for instance, here in Northeast, the information is different. So the OD the population in Northeast had a profile that made it be scored in a certain way because of the number of transaction ATM and maybe the marital status and so on. And if I carry on and filter on my data, I will see that different profile data got a different score because of different reasons. So I'm capable now of explaining why I got such and such a score and take action immediately or quick enough business action onto why we understand that single people are predicted to buy insurance or not, and why female or male have a different propensity. And these are the drivers. And now knowing the drivers, I can take a business decision quickly. Getting to this from the machine learning results of the database using SQL is a long path, but it took me as a business user not knowing SQL a few minutes to get there. So that's very powerful. And that's really the combination of OAC and OML. And in this case, the data set could have been millions and billions of rows, because the power here is really leveraging the capabilities of the database itself. So I'm looking at the clock here and I'm doing a little late. So I'm just going to talk to a slide or two for the second point. We saw quickly how the value of consuming database machine learning models from OAC and the power of it. I also want to quickly highlight, in addition to this, in my data flow, you may have noticed earlier on in my demo, there was a node called database analytics. So if I have a data source that is a database data source, obviously I can run machine learning models that I have registered, but I can also run capabilities that exist by default in any of these databases, like dynamic anomaly detection, dynamic clustering, sampling, unpivoting, frequent item sets, association rules. If a few products are bought together or a few transactions are happening with a customer on a given day, what is the next most likely transaction that we have seen in history? Very powerful, pretty technical to run in the database, but in the data flow, very simple to generate a data set with this. Text tokenization, what are the most frequent words in your text? And how do they join back to your original data? Very powerful. Time series forecasting, also very powerful in the database with a lot of different algorithms. And one little safe harbor slide here, because I want to show you one quick one that comes and adds to this database analytics, graph analytics. So the database has a graph analytics capability. Well, actually it has many very powerful graph capabilities in database. You've heard Dan mention Graph Studio in the next call. This is very powerful. Now we're not doing Graph Studio here. We're a lot more humble, we're doing just simple clustering, shortest path, node ranking, and subgraph, leveraging some of the SQL graph engine in the database. Pretty cool, not so simple to run if you're going and typing SQL. You have to do a bunch of things, but you know what? We've done a data flow node that does it all for you. And it doesn't do anything. It lets the database do the work. So there is no data movement. But you see that picture? Here's a graph of some nodes and vertices. And I wanted to know the shortest path to go between that node to that node. And it took me 30 seconds to run that shortest path algorithm in the data flow and get there. So I don't have the time to run through the demo for this. I'll be happy to do it in a different session. But this is also a very powerful business value of integrating OAC with the Oracle database, in this case, not exclusively machine learning, but also graphs. So I'll skip the demo. I'm just going to wrap. You've seen how we can easily apply machine learning models on your own data set in the database, visualize them, and see their metadata. This was the list of views that I presented you. Understand and explain the results of Oracle machine learning, and then also apply complex database analytics on top of their data on data. There are playlists out there that you can go and look at that will show you these demos in details. There's a 5.9 playlist where you can see some highlighted in blue visualization here. These are short videos demoing this directly. The 5.7 as well is giving you some quite a few previews. I mean, you see the pattern here. Soon we'll have a next release, the one that comes just after 5.9. The playlist is not public yet, so I will say no more. But maybe if you can fill up the missing dots, maybe it's worth giving a quick try. I don't know. I'll pass it on back to you, Dan, for the conclusion. But before that, I want to thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you on this. And if you have any questions, feel free. We'll be happy to support you with any of these. Thanks a lot. Dan? Oh, hopefully I haven't lost you guys on the Zoom. Can you hear me, Dan?
Hi, Philippe. This is Carrie. I don't know. I'm sure Dan is in the middle of answering.
I found it. I was clicking on your. I was clicking on your button of instead of mine. So
are there any questions you want us to
there was one that came in, Philippe, I'd like you to address. I answered a couple on your behalf, but one of them was, would you point me to documentation where I can follow workflow of creating Oracle machine learning prediction using OAC? Where would you point people to that want to get more on this information?
So if the question is about the native, so creating workflow to train machine learning models in OAC, so not in OML, but in OAC, you have a tutorial in the Oracle Analytics library that helps you with this. And that's the one that I can think of. So if you look at Oracle Analytics, if you Google Oracle Analytics library, and there are tutorials there. And one of them is about the process of generating these models. If that's a question, that's the simplest answer right now. If the question is more about Oracle machine learning, so database machine learning and how to consume them in Oracle Analytics, then I would suggest for now to go to these playlists. So you, particularly the 5.7, the 5.9 in that are public right now, and you will find some probably an hour of video altogether just about that.
Okay, super. There was another one. I want to make sure that I had it right. There was a question, this functionality works in regular Oracle databases as well as ADW, correct? Can you talk about what versions of Oracle database would this work with? Yes,
that's a great question. So Oracle machine learning, so basically, if I go back one slide, maybe a few more slides. Okay. machine learning models, right? So the machine learning models that you have and the algorithms that you have in the database depend on the version. So whatever database you have that supports a given algorithm is going to just work right there. So basically what I'm trying to say for machine learning models, if you have the algorithm working in the database, we will support it in OAC. Now, there are very few algorithms right now that we do not support in OAC. You can consider that most of the algorithms we are supporting. That's not a question of version. Just if it exists in your database, it'll work. If for the database analytics sequels, there are a few caveats there. I believe that the most of them work in most recent database 12c and before, but there is one of them, I believe it's market basket, so association rules that require a certain, I think it's 18c, I'm not sure, or it's a time series. I'm a little confused. There is 90% of these database analytics that do not require a very recent database, I think is the simplest answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add, for those that don't know that missed the memo, also, advanced analytics used to be an extra cost item of the Oracle database. And about a year ago, that switched to actually being included with the Oracle database. So you may have been told in the past you couldn't do this type of stuff with your 12c database. Now you can. So just be aware of that for people in the audience. All right, well, Philippe, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, but I do want to share with people, hey, we do have some upcoming webcasts. Check them out on behalf of the A&D OUC. They are coming up. One is on Graph Studio, what Philippe was talking about with the Oracle Autonomous Database. That'll be a full demo just on March 18th. Find us at ANDOUC/TechCasts. And then I'll be showing what's new in Oracle Analytics, going through the last few releases of that and giving a live demo of really other features in OAC that's part of a whole series we've been doing for years. And you can find that registration link in here as well. Carrie just posted in the chat window where you can all sign up for that. And that will be on the website. I'm showing what that looks like. And you can go back and look through our archive going back for years. We have lots of videos out there that you can look at. If you want to then join our community, you can join us in several different ways. We have an upcoming TechCast Days taking place May 11th through 13th. That takes place basically in the morning hours of the US. You can submit an abstract to present with us, and those will be hands-on sessions. That's what we're getting all the details lined up to do this using Oracle Live Labs environment and allow people to kind of click along with us, if you will. So we'd love to have you do that and join our community. Join us on Slack, LinkedIn, Facebook. We have a newsletter and such, and join our upcoming webcasts. With that, Philippe, thank you so much for taking us through that. And we'll talk to you all in another couple of weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan and Carrie. Have a great day. Bye-bye.